Next, award-winning author and writer Rose Levy Beranbaum will demonstrate one of her signature recipes, Pear Tart with almond cream.
A pear tart is one of the most perfect desserts because it's easy to make and it's elegant, it has complexity, it has three basic ingredients or three basic textures, which is what makes it so special. It has a crisp crust, it has the creamy almond cream filling, which is really simple to make, and then it has the glistening, juicy poached pears. And here's how I make my crust. And in a food processor, it's really quick to do. The flour, which is bleached all-purpose flour, so it's a nice tender crust. So I have salt, and I also have baking powder. And the special thing about baking powder is that it makes the crust tender, but not until it's already in the pan. Okay, I'm just whirling together the salt, the flour, and the baking powder. And now the cream cheese. And cream cheese has salt. That's why we're not adding too much salt to the recipe itself, because the salt is already in the cream cheese. And now I'm going to pulse it, which means brief little second pulses until I see crumbly pieces. So it looks kind of like cornmeal. And this is coating the flour to keep it from getting tough when I add the butter and add the liquid. This is tenderizing the crust. Adding the cold butter is what gives you the flakiness. And now I can just add the water, which is ice water, and vinegar, cider vinegar, which gives it a lovely flavor, but it also gives it more tenderness. So, you know, a cardboardy crust is no fun. A funny thing in baking, and it's really true in almost all things, is that if the texture is wrong, the flavor is wrong too. Okay, and now the butter. And it doesn't really matter if you put in the butter first or the liquid first. But the main thing is that you want to have pea-sized pieces of butter and small peas. Because if you have too large a piece of butter, when you roll it out, it will stick to the surface. And it takes about a minute to get it to the right consistency. Okay, this looks perfect. Now I'm inverting a bag over the top. If you're in doubt as to whether the bag is strong enough, double bag. And here is our finished crust. And you can see the little flecks of butter. It's chilled, but it's been taken out of the refrigerator for about 10 minutes so that it's soft enough and malleable enough to roll out. And basically what I'm doing is I'm not putting my hands directly on this dough because it's keeping it from heating it up. I'm just putting it together so that it holds together, and then I can empty it out and finish doing it on a piece of plastic wrap. And what I want to do now is to finish it at this point by making it into a little disc, because like this, when I start rolling it, it's easier to roll. If it were a ball, it would crack when I pressed it down with a rolling pin. Also, I want to make sure that it's going to be strong enough to roll out and not fall apart. Okay, so press it down, form it into a nice little round, and refrigerate it for 40 minutes. It could be refrigerated longer, but then you'll need to soften it. But at least 40 minutes, unless you've kept it so cold, and it's so cold in the kitchen, that you can roll it out right away. Thank you. Because it's warm in the kitchen, I'm going to roll it out on the plastic wrap. And in order to make it large enough, I've crisscrossed 2 pieces of plastic wrap. And I'm going to flour it lightly. And also flour the surface of the dough. If you have a pastry sleeve that slips on top of the rolling pin, you can rub the flour right into it. But the important thing is to constantly be checking to see that it's not sticking. And you can add more flour as you need to. I'm rolling from the center of the dough out to the side. And since it's on the plastic wrap, I'm not too concerned, because if it starts getting warm, which I'm sure it will, I can just slip the whole thing into the freezer. And in order to not add too much flour, because that will make it a less delicate dough, I can put another sheet of plastic wrap on the top. Okay, I have a lid that is just about 11 inches if I set it on top. So I'm going to mark all the way around it to cut off the excess dough. And we're going to bake this dough, this crust, before we put the filling in so that it's extra crunchy. First, I'm lining the pan with parchment. In this case, I have a large coffee filter, which works really well because it conforms to the shape of the pan. And either I can roll this around the rolling pin, or I can carefully fold it in quarters. We don't want too much flour here. And then carefully drape it into the tart pan. And without stretching it, ease it in. We want it to be a little bit higher than the sides because it will shrink down a bit. And if it cracks in any spot, just press it together. Now, what do we do with the excess? Anybody have any idea? Yeah, we fold it in because that makes the sides stronger. And if you want, you can take shears and cut it off a little closer. But you don't fold it in between the sides of the pan and the dough. You fold it in this direction because when it's unmolded, you want the sides to look perfectly smooth. And as soon as I have it pressed up against the sides of the pan and slightly above, I put in my parchment filter and some of the pie weights, or in this case beans, which is my preference because it's less expensive, you can reuse it, and also it's lighter so the crust doesn't get compacted. And this is going to now bake for 20 minutes at 400. We have a tart crust that's already been baked, pre-baked. It's beautiful and golden, and it's ready to receive the almond cream filling.